Hey, fellow patriots, I'm Bree.
And I'm Blaze. Some call me Pa. It has been said that we have 4 boxes to keep ourselves free. These are the soap box, the ballot box, the jury box, and the ammo box.
And we are the 4th box. We are here to arm you with enough information, resources, and skills to take back your freedom, increase your self-sufficiency, and inspire you to join in the fight against tyranny.
Thomas Jefferson said, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." Thank you for joining us and for joining in this fight.
Welcome back to the 4th box. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the 4th box on Thanksgiving, a Thanksgiving episode. This is a fun one. We are keeping it Thanksgiving themed tonight, and though we've had a plethora of guests over the last several weeks, we've decided that we would just do Pops and I for this one because it is kind of a special one falling on a holiday. As you know, of course, we're not recording this on Thanksgiving Day, so we're a little premature in our happy Thanksgiving wish to all of you. But nevertheless, when you hear this, it will most likely be after Thanksgiving. Hopefully, you're all out doing something and enjoying the holiday with loved ones. So, Pops, welcome to the 4th box. Happy almost Thanksgiving to you.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. We're going to make a week-long celebration out of this. A lot of comings and going, family running around, as I'm sure most folks do. So we are very happy to be coming to you on Thanksgiving Day. We are coming to you from the 4th Box Studios, tucked away safely in the virtual Buckman Tavern, a place we call to mind every week when we think about those great patriots that met on the Lexington Green up there in 1775, April 19th, which has become known to some as Patriots' Day, the shot heard round the world, which started the first American Revolution. And we call that to mind every night, every week when we get on the 4th Box podcast. So we're very happy to come to you tonight on Thanksgiving, wishing all of you the best of Thanksgiving and hopefully the rest of the weekend. I know tomorrow is the big commercial kickoff, Black Friday, and all that nonsense, but we like to refer to Thanksgiving as the forgotten holiday. It's one without a whole lot of commercial undertones to it, and it's one of my favorites for that very reason. So wishing all of our listeners, your family, and loved ones a very happy Thanksgiving. And so for the quote tonight, let's do the toast first. And I'm going to call on Bree to offer up a toast tonight just as a change of pace on Thanksgiving.
I love that. Yeah, I never get to do the toast. I have a very exciting coconut water tonight. Not too flashy.
I'll make up for it. I'm going to have a little snip of Irish whiskey while you sip on your coconut water. How's that?
Ooh, oh yeah, that's a nice balance. Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
So for my toast, I think that I would like to toast to some of the people who are kind of making waves right now that maybe we have in some capacity called on previously, that have much bigger platforms than us, but have put themselves in a position where they have a target on them all the time. And even still, they're not backing down from their position, and they're still putting truth and the American people at the forefront of their mission. I'm sure we all know by now, Marjorie Taylor Greene is choosing to step away from office. So she is one person that I would like to raise my glass to, because she is not afraid to come out and tell people that maybe you were wrong. Maybe we were all wrong when we decided to lean on a person. And I stand by what I said before. I still think that we made the better pick of two. But it was still the lesser of two evils. And now we're kind of seeing that, this whole 4D chess thing, it's not happening. And a lot of the things that we did vote for are not happening. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying, yeah, I understand that this is going to put a target on my back saying these things, but it's just the truth. And I stand for truth, and I stand for America first. And so do we. So people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, people like Candace Owens, who is now revealing things that are quite threatening to her safety and her family's safety about the Charlie Kirk incident, who she has never stopped pressing what is going on there, and coming under major attack from all sides of the political sphere, from forces around the globe, in fact. People like her, people like Tucker Carlson, people like Nick Fuentes, these are people who are not backing down on their platform, what they have to say, the truth that they've been attempting to spread this whole time, even though it is quite literally putting their lives in danger at this point. And I would like to cheers to them, because I know that we come here every week and we do our best to spread the truth, but some people have much bigger platforms than us and a lot more eyes on them. And I commend anyone who tells the truth in any capacity. So especially cheers to those who are in those positions right now.
Here, here. Salute.
All right, back to you for the quote.
Yeah, and I'd like to circle back after the quote just to touch on that subject that you called the mind during the toast. For the quote tonight, back to our Thanksgiving theme. This is a great one. When you rise in the morning, give thanks for the light, for your life, for your strength. Give thanks for your food and for the joy of living. If you see no reason to give thanks, the fault lies only in yourself. And that comes from the great Shawnee Indian chief from out in the Ohio, Michigan area, who was a great orator, military leader of the Shawnee Indians, which was pushing back in those days against English and Americans pushing through into their territory. But very, very insightful quote. I think there is a lot of truth to that. We got to get back to the basics and being thankful for the basics. So that came from the great Chief Tecumseh of the Shawnee Indian Nation.
That's awesome. Great quote
tonight. Yeah. And then to go back and talk about your toast toward Tucker and Candace and Margie and Nick and all of those. I want to call a special attention to that as well. I think it was a great and well-deserved toast. You know, Marjorie is going to be thrown under the bus, as she already has, by the Republican establishment, because she was probably speaking too close to the truth, being too revealing about the dirty deeds that have gone on forever and ever. She chooses not to participate. I think it says an awful lot about those others who have not stepped away. And honestly, not to bring a personal side to this, but I think in a much lesser degree, this is what I felt like when I left the state police. I cannot change this. I cannot change. The system is so irreparably broken. It is here to fulfill the wants of those in high office. In my instance, it was there to collect money, which I did not believe in. She is calling out things that are not at all what the American public expects. And she recognizes that she will spend a lifetime of futility trying to change that, fighting every single step of the way with less and less allies to support her cause. And she points out, I read her whole transcript, 4 or 5 pages. When she made the announcement, she has decided to turn back. She's a faithful person. She wants to spend time with family and friends that she has lost during her time in office, which she's only been in since 2020. But she has been a noisemaker. And I think subsequently she has fallen out of favor with the establishment insiders, and the long knives were coming out. She was going to get support from nowhere. And then her and Donnie Trump were having a very visible conflict of interest, as you could see. And you know that the really terrifying thing to me is the Trumpers are going to be quick to throw Margie under the bus because they just cannot let go of the person that they support. But to your point, the Epstein thing fell through, the Ukraine thing fell through, Fort Knox fell through. All of these big ticket items, where'd Bobby Kennedy go? We went in there with a feather duster blowing the dust off of things. We should have been in there with a wrecking ball, and nothing big happened. And she's calling it out. She knows she's very frustrated, and I stand in solidarity with her. As far as I'm concerned, she is speaking to the American people about what she tried to do, and she was met by roadblocks all throughout the establishment, and she just said to hell with it. And I feel completely in line with her judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I wanted to send the toast that way tonight, because I guess there's sort of no winning. You want to stay in there and fight the good fight, but at a certain point, you recognize the fight is already lost from that battlefield, from the battlefield of being within the government. What does that tell us? Well, we're the fourth box. That's our name for a reason, right? We already know that that ship has sailed. We're not fixing this with the ballot
Yep.
box. We're not fixing it by voting a new person in there. And does this not prove that? Yeah,
Yep.
all those things that we hoped for did not happen. But you know what has happened under this administration? A whole new onslaught of Israeli influence. And it was always there for sure. But now, because of some of those other names mentioned, Nick Fuentes, for example, we're starting to see just how deep that is, deep that connection is. And Trump has received more money from Israel than anyone else, any sitting president. I mean, what does this tell us? So these things that are happening they're not what we voted for. The big things are this whole new attachment to Israel and doing literally whatever they need us to do, regardless of what's happening on our soil with our American people, sending billions and billions and billions of dollars to these types of causes, and all of this AI stuff. I mean, the money that is being funneled to some of these people that have absolutely no business in knowing what you or I are doing, but absolutely have access to this podcast right now because of the funding from our government that has gone to some of these companies. It's completely out of line with what we voted for when we decided to stand with MAGA. We said from the beginning that MAGA does not equal Trump. Make America Great Again is not about the man, it's about the movement. The issue that we have now is that there are people who still think it's the man, and there are those of us who know that it's the movement, and we're still out here trying to make America great again. And people who are only aligning themselves with Trump and nothing else are failing to see the bigger picture. So I hope there's more people like Marjorie Taylor Greene that step up and speak out and say, this problem is not going to fix itself from within the walls of Washington.
Yeah.
Maybe that will start to open people's eyes a little bit more. That's all we can hope for. But for now, I'm thankful to her for the effort that she put in to this point.
Yeah.
It can't have been easy.
100%. I am too. And not that I agree with 100% on every issue that she stood on, but I think she stood for truth, and that's most important. But to your point about all these things, the surveillance state has expanded exponentially. The ridiculous spending in a war that we started and should have never been in Ukraine absolutely continues on. The Doge thing was a flop. Epstein was a flop. All of this stuff was great campaign verbiage, but there
Yeah.
was no execution. We beat around the bushes. And here's the way I look at it: when Trump first took off his second term, I think the deep state and the powerful international banking community behind the deep state, they let him get away with the border thing. They let him tighten things up on the border thing. They give him his win. They give him his win there, and then the rest of they closed ranks behind that. Other than that, the big stuff has not been taken care of. And we can all stand and cheer and always do, yeah, the economy might be doing better and these things, but the big things that we're going to get torn down, the IRS, illegal IRS, Department of Education, this ridiculous spending, the continuation of the surveillance state, continued crazy funding in Ukraine and other places around the world has continued because, once again, the deep state and the international banking community and the real powers behind are calling the shots, and that stuff is not going to come to full light, and it's not going to stop. Not
Yeah.
Donald Trump. And unless everybody in Congress turns into a Margie Green and says we're going to return this thing to the original intent, unless everybody's going along with it, and that includes the crooks in on the Supreme Court bench too, because they have been as illegal and out of bounds as anybody else. And until all those people change, we're just beating our head off the wall. As you stated, we're down to the fourth box. We are down to the fourth box. None of us want it. We are not advocating for it, but there is no other fix. The ballot box is broken. The jury box hasn't existed in 50 years or more. And the soapbox, such as we're using here, we have our audience, all these others like Tucker that's receiving flack also, and Nick and the rest of them. we have our audiences, but we're marking time. We're marking time. So I don't want to lose sight of Thanksgiving. We do have an awful lot to be thankful for. Be thankful for your family. Be thankful for your health. Be thankful for your job. Be thankful for these blessings that are right here. And we will know when it is time to take action. But we will continue to spread the word. Spread the word first this week by telling everybody to be thankful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we circled back to that. It had to come eventually. Sometimes we sidebar a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into the Thanksgiving conversation then on that note. I kind of put together a few things that I want to talk about here that are directly relevant to what you just said. There's a lot going on in the world. There always has been. Sometimes it's easy to get a little bit of tunnel vision and think this is the worst it's ever been. I don't know if that's true, but it's certainly the worst it's been in my lifetime. Is it the worst it's ever been in history? Probably not. And even still, there's always been something to be thankful for. So for tonight, as we think about Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving week, and the history of Thanksgiving, I want to call attention to the fact that the importance of this holiday, like many of our other holidays and traditions, has become incredibly diluted by political ideologies throughout the years. And like so many of our traditions in this country, we have an attack on this thing that is very inherent to our history and to our nation. It's a big part of who we are. And there are always people that don't even want to hear the words Happy Thanksgiving, right? It's just like hearing the word Christmas or, God forbid, Columbus Day, right? We're talking about racism here and colonialism and all these things that have become attached to anything that the woke side of the world has decided that they've taken grievance with. And it is true that the Pilgrims and the Indians weren't exactly sitting down and holding hands and singing Kumbaya, and it was like this beautiful, peaceful thing all the time, right? That's true, of course. And it's also true that this recently popularized claim that the holiday is inherently racist and not worth a celebration because of it, it's also utter bullshit. And both can be true. Multiple things can be true at once. And I think that's what we forget in a lot of these conversations. The world is not so black and white as what some of the media, whether that's social media or mainstream media, makes us feel. That black and white is where the division is created, but most of these conversations are not black and white. Most of it is quite gray. So multiple things can be true at once. Conquest, for example, is a universal human pattern. The conquest of other nations is, in my estimation, a necessity for evolution. It's also true that governments lie and that history has been rewritten around other subjects. That's true too. It's also true that we as people on this earth still need rituals of thanks and family and faith. So I think all of these things can be true at once, and trying to demonize something that is being blown out of proportion is another example of the woke's destruction of this country at its very root.
Absolutely. So a lot of good points there. And what I'd like to go back to, as you mentioned, the screeching and the hollering that comes about this is just a racist holiday, and I think people that want to tear down this country, that want to tear down traditional values, they want to tear down traditional family, they want to tear down traditional days of celebration such as family. They recognize that you get a lot of traction and you get a lot of leverage out of calling somebody a racist. So anytime that they are remotely able to cast somebody in that light, doesn't have to be true or not. All you got to do is holler it out there that somebody is racist. You know you are putting people in a defensive position because nobody wants to be viewed as racist. So you got to break the thing down to the basic nuts and bolts. And what the basic nuts and bolts are is the people in this country a very, very long time ago, before it was even declared a national holiday, took time to celebrate the harvest season, the pushing into new and the settlement between these. They're oftentimes feuding, but at some point along the line, various groups and factions sat down and they had a celebration of Thanksgiving. And if somebody can find harm in that, you're really looking to create problems where there shouldn't be. But I think this gives them a leg of leverage as soon as you can cast somebody in that light. You hear this name being thrown around all the time, racist, racist, racist. So one good thing about that is it is starting to lose its effectiveness. And the other thing is, you know you are over the target when you start receiving flack. So if you're talking about the value of family, a traditional family, and you're talking about the things that bring people together to celebrate in Thanksgiving, and people give you flack about it, you know you are over their target. You have instilled in them a desire to attack something that should be across all genres, across all demographics. It should be acceptable. We're just giving thanks. Hey, just like the people that are crying out for reparations. Of course, there was slavery a long time ago. We would argue here that if you are working for the benefit of somebody that is not, then you are in fact are a slave already. So slavery continues to go on today. We don't celebrate people being in chains, and there was black and whites, and there were blacks that owned blacks, and there were blacks that owned whites, and whites that owned black. None of us are celebrating that. But we are just giving thanks for the many blessings that we've all received. And if somebody has to take pick a bone with that, they are obviously just looking for a fight. We all have a reason to give thanks every single day, and nobody should really have too much to cry about people giving thanks.
Well, you wouldn't think so, but it's so funny, some of the reasons that these people have for calling the holiday racist. I mean, think about something as silly as, back in the day, I think it was pretty commonplace to sit Indian style in the classroom, right? Now we can't even say that. We say, oh, you got to sit crisscross applesauce or whatever. And I think the little kiddies would wear their little pilgrim outfits and their little Indian outfits, right? And they would do a little play or whatever in kindergarten or, whatever. And now, like, even that, like a 5-year-old kid wearing, paper cutout feathers on their head is like offensive because it's cultural appropriation. Like, okay, let's settle down a little bit. Some of these things are so far out of the realm of like what is a real threat. You obviously don't understand like what a true threat is, and your perception of that is skewed by this word racism and these words that trigger something in you for some reason. You don't know why. Somebody told you they should be triggering. But another thing that's like very reminiscent of this, is so silly, is when we think about like land acknowledgements. These people who feel like they go somewhere, they have to call attention to like, well, this land was owned by, so this Native American tribe before me, and like, look, I get it. I'm not saying that as a nation we don't have a violent past. I'm not disputing that at all. I understand that that's true. But there has to be a capture of other land and other peoples for new nations to arrive. At any nation. We are not the only one. I assure you. Look at any nation who
That's
has
correct.
expanded into other territories in any capacity. If there is a nation with borders and a government, at one time they conquered another people, period. So you can get all upset with, oh, whites, oh, the whiteness. It's a systemic white racial issue, but it's not a white versus non-white thing. We can look anywhere through history. We can look at Rome expanding across Europe, Africa. I mean, everywhere in the surrounding region. We can look at the Mongols conquesting across Asia and in Europe. We can look at the Ottoman expansion over Byzantine and Balkan territories. Like, this goes back as far as people go back. This is not, so this idea that we're going to take this holiday and turn it into something that is inherently racist because our very, very, very distant ancestors came to settle this land when somebody else had it before them. I understand there were people that were killed at the time. And I'm not saying that was the best thing that ever happened. The important thing to remember here is that Thanksgiving is not about celebrating the violence. It's about celebrating the day where the violence paused. and people were able to come together. That's the celebration. We're celebrating a time where there was peace between people who thought differently. Oh, if we could just do that now. And yes, there's a gratitude component there. We should be thankful. We have much to be thankful for. And if we could all come together a little bit for that moment of gratitude as well, how far would that take us? Would it solve all the problems we have today? No. But I think it's pretty important to remember that that is what the root of this holiday is. Not the violence, not racism, not colonialism, not all this nonsense that people have tried to attach to it just to win in some silly argument that is founded in nothing.
Exactly. And if there were some of that going on today and somebody was calling it out, I have no problem with that. But if you are calling out something that happened 400 years ago and you're trying to make that a relevant part of the conversation today, I do have a problem with that. And the other point I want to make about that, these same people that are bitching about some grade school age children having a play about the pilgrims and the Indians sitting down and having a feast together. Keep in mind, people, please, these are the same people that can't define what a woman is. Let that sink in. So they are the ones that are bitching about children celebrating Thanksgiving as all of us did when we came up through school and finding a reason to celebrate and enjoying weekend with family. And these are the same people that are raising hell about that, calling that a racist holiday, are the same people that can't define a woman, or they tell you that there's 27 different varieties of sex. This is the lunacy that we have allowed to take center stage today, have the biggest bullhorn, is given the most attention, and has the least amount of value and truthfulness in what they're proclaiming. That's what we have to get back to. Shove the noise aside. They're screeching and hollering because they have nothing else to do. They have no fact, no truth to stand on, so they make a big noise, and we are the idiots for listening to it. We had to just turn it off and ignore it. There's nothing coming out of their mouth of any value. They can't even tell you what they can't define a woman. By the way, you might see some of your elected officials, when they are called on the spot, who are in the same boat. They refuse to define a woman because that'll send them out of grace with the Looney Tunes. We got to get our head on straight and quit even giving these people the time of day.
Right. 100%. Yeah. So the next thing I wanted to kind of go in here is that all of these things are true, right? Everything we said is true. But what is also true is that governments lie all the time, and history is rewritten all the time. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear, you should know and understand that this beautiful, peaceful picture that has been painted of Thanksgiving isn't necessarily the whole picture, but it's written in such a way into history books because that is the way of any culture, right? We want to kind of get this idea of unity installed at an early age and all of these things. And I think there's a level of importance to that, but we should also remember, while recognizing that this is not a holiday we should be offended by, we should also remember that there are things that are in our history books that are not true, or at the very least not the full picture. And that's across the board. Again, this is not an American issue. This is a national issue. Go to any nation, this is an issue. This is the way that textbooks are written, because they're written for the people that are coming up in that nation. We want these people to think a certain way. Now, that being said, we recognize that in this country, we do have an education issue. We have an issue where lies are being systematically told and propaganda is being pushed. Is Thanksgiving the biggest one? No, absolutely not. Are there little mistruths about Thanksgiving on a full picture? Yeah, sure. But if we want to talk about lies that are being pushed in the textbooks in this country, when we think about history, about American study, like the study of our history and how we have found our place in the world, there are much bigger lies in the textbooks than that. And I think we have to be able to recognize that, if there are lies so little about, what exactly happened on the first Thanksgiving ever, if there are minute lies about those things in our textbooks, what else have we been lied to about? Because some people can recognize, oh, we were lied to about that. It didn't happen quite like that with Thanksgiving. Yet they fail to see all of the other lies that we have been told and are still being told today. We should use that as a tool to recognize that lies are being told all the time, and discernment is the key to that problem. And removing yourself from traditional education, or your children or your grandchildren from traditional education, is a necessary step to avoid these things, because it's very difficult to see through the murky waters of what was and wasn't of our history and history around the world when people are putting these truths and non-truths in a way that it's propagandizing their own narrative.
Yes. So again, a lot of ammunition there, a lot of different points you could comment on, but the first one goes back to early on in that piece, and I would only comment on a statement that I've seen go around for 25 years since we've been in this arena, and that is, you either know history or you trust your government. Or you trust your government, or you know history. You can't do both things, because trusting your government has always led to a very hard and rocky road. The other thing, when you describe the writing of history books, of course, the writing of history books in any country is going to be written, the description of events is going to be written to best suit those who are currently in power. History cannot change. Only the description of those events can change. And without getting back, and none of us really know what happened on the first Thanksgiving or on those days when these different events took place, we are only calling to mind what we know now. What we know now is that we are taking a time, a moment, before the craziness of the holiday season is upon us, beginning tomorrow, Black Friday. Oh, and by the way, I suppose some of them actually started today. But before all of that, let's just take pause for a moment and be thankful. And I don't think that should be anything to get everybody in an uproar. We're talking about the world that we're living in now. Of course, there was things that happened down through history that if any of us had an opportunity to change, should we have been living in those days, we would have been right by trying to change them. We cannot right any of those events that took place. Reparations does nothing except make people poor and give people money that don't deserve it. None of those were people that were living in chains. Nothing that they are faced with today is a result of something that happened 200 years ago, and that's why their lot in life is such as this is. And none of those people are affected by how the real first Thanksgiving took place. Let's just take the moment to celebrate the many blessings that we do have. And we can talk about history, but we first have to recognize that the people that had the opportunity to write the book are writing it for the benefit of themselves. We can all admit that.
100%. And that will never stop. It's just as true about the first Thanksgiving as it is about the current wars, about public health, about surveillance, any of this ringing any bells for anyone. These things are still true. And recognizing that historical spin exists in the present tense should make people more vigilant to the present rather than making people angry about the past. It can make you both, 100%, but it can't only make you angry about the past without recognizing the present. You have to be able to be vigilant now, and that is something that you should be thankful for. If you can recognize the issues with the past, then you should use that towards good today, and you should use it to seek truth today and be thankful that you've recognized that pattern. So, that all being said, gratitude in and of itself is fundamentally directed towards God and what he provides, not towards Washington, D.C., the people that sit there, the textbooks, any of the narratives that come along with any of it. The day is not about remembering what happened in 1621. It's about being thankful. It's about recognizing what we have to be thankful for. And we're not directing any of that towards any of these political ideologies. And we're thinking about them today in this conversation, but really, it should be so far removed from that, because gratitude is a tool in itself. Gratitude is the ammunition in this spiritual war that we talk about all the time. The spiritual war that is so much bigger and transcends the political field entirely. Gratitude is the antidote to fear, resentment, and to the lies that exist in the politics that fuel a lot of this woke mindset that we're talking about today. So being thankful is not just something we should all be doing regardless of where we're at, but it's also a tool against the enemy.
It is, and a great point you made there, which is, being grateful really is an activity that is for the present. It's for this moment. We need to be thankful. We could be thankful about something that happened last year or 5 years ago, but that's not as important as being thankful for the present moment, the day in which we're living in. And the other point that you made there was being active in today. If somebody wants to go out and quarrel over how the history books recorded the American Revolution or the first Thanksgiving or the Civil War, to me, there's very little value in that. If we're going to quarrel, let's quarrel about the issues of today, and let's get to the truth of the matter that faces everybody, no matter what moment you're living in. So if you want to engage yourself and expend some energy in something useful, let's look at divulging the truth of the day, today that we live in, and then let's be thankful for this day that we're living in. But really, if you want to be active, to take up a fight about something that happened 2 or 3 or 400 years ago is really meaningless. It's really meaningless. It accomplishes zero. Let's fight about the issues. Let's discuss the issues. Let's debate the issues that are facing this country, and then beyond that, where this country is sending its money. I'm not ever going to say that we're not a global family. We are independent countries. We just happen to be facing lots of threats in an effort to tear this country down. Many of them which are sitting in office, many of them are behind the scenes, and many of them are on the globalist platform, recognizing that they got to get this country out of the way. So let's focus on those challenges of today rather than worried about who was actually sitting at the first Thanksgiving table.
Yeah, 100%. And I know people like to spin that piece too, but there were borders in the Bible. Read the book. This is not a non-Christian concept to defend your own, actually. So
and every other country in the world, including the Vatican, by the way, secures its borders or makes a very good attempt at securing. Why? Unless you are going along with the destruction of this country as a sovereign nation, why would you think that we should be the only ones that don't secure our borders? Unless you are part of the energy to tear it down.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously that's the same people, right? It goes hand in hand. The people that are bitching about Thanksgiving being a racist holiday are the same ones that are saying that we're all racist for wanting anybody who's not a legal citizen of this country out of this country. But these ideas, thinking this way, does not make you not a Christian, as much as people try to push that narrative too. But again, I mean, regardless of all of those things, Thanksgiving is and should be part of our tradition as Americans. And the idea that we have to tear down anything that is a tradition of this country is based on a lie that tells us anyone who even loves America at all is racist, and anyone who was part of the settling of this country is a racist. First of all, they're your ancestors too. Sorry, whether you like it or not. And again, to reiterate that multiple things can be true at once. Yes, there was true and real hardships that happened between the settlers back then and the Native American people back then. Of course. There are real hardships that happen between different people today. Are those racial wars still actually happening the way that it was back then? No. And in fact, it wasn't happening because of race back then either. It was just happening because people wanted land that other people had. And I don't think I have to reiterate the point again, but That's always happened throughout all of history, anywhere. It's not great. We're not saying, yeah, you should get violent. In fact, we're saying the opposite by saying the border thing. That whole thing is based on exactly this. No, I don't think you should come into somebody else's house and kick the door down and say, this is mine now. I actually don't think you should do that. Like what we see happening at the border. Like, yeah, probably what happened back then in the day. No, I don't think that was the best move. However, all that happening, yeah, there was real cooperation on the original Thanksgiving. People really did see eye to eye for a moment. And I think that's the clarifying piece here. That's what we should all remember, is that chaos is always going to exist in the world. Our history as humans, regardless of where you're from, what your race is, what your background is, our history is messy. We can't change that. I can't change that. You can't change that. Nobody can change that. Everybody, look down your family history far enough, you'll find something that you don't like. Be a better person today. That's all you can do. You
Correct.
Can't get upset about some crazy, chaotic, messy history that just is inherent to the human nature. We've been around this planet for thousands of years. A lot has gone on. Let's use the day and recognize it for what it is. It's a pause in the chaos. It's a moment to recognize there is still something to be thankful for and that God is still providing. They could pause then. And you know what? It probably was worse in some capacity for those people then. Or at the very least, they felt like we do. And hey, this is as bad as it can be. This is as bad as it's going to get. They probably felt like that too. And they were still able to pause, come together, and be thankful to God for what they had. People they loved, food on the table. And that's really what it's all about. So yes, we can all throw a hissy fit about something that somebody told me to be upset about, but are you really solving any problems by living a joyless life and attaching yourself to these negative ideas all the time? Is that fixing anything? Are we finding resolution in these ideas that are based in complete negativity and hatred? No.
Yeah. That was great, and just to bring up a point of irony, since you'd spent a little time talking about the border, and so much of the vitriol that goes on today are those who are declaring that we have no right to protect our border, but they're the same folks with a Ukraine flag flying saying we should be sending tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine to defend theirs. So I don't really know what side of the fence they stand on, except they want this country destroyed. The very place that provided for them the ability to go out on the street and tear down and speak badly about everything everybody that's providing the benefits that they consume every day. This is the irony of the people that we're dealing with here. They are so committed to trying to destroy this place and to pushing forward Marxist ideals that they will scream from the mountaintops that we cannot be defending our borders while they're running around with a Ukraine flag in their hand or perched on the side of their house. It's lunacy. We do not need to engage our time with those that have no ability to critically think for themselves, that only go out and regurgitate that which somebody else told them to say. Let's just be thankful that we still have these opportunities around us. We have an opportunity to go out and get a job. We have an opportunity to move anywhere in this country we want. We have endless opportunities. Yes, Big Brother is encroaching further and further and further on our rights every single day. We still have an opportunity to push back. We still have an opportunity to move and exert energy into the things that we believe in this country without somebody holding a gun to your head. And for that, we should be thankful.
100%. Yeah, we have the opportunity to sit here on this podcast. You can't do that in every country. And you know what you can't do in almost every other country? You can't go out and buy a new gun.
Yeah.
But we can do that here. And that's something to be thankful for when we think about all of the other things going on.
Yep. And we can sit around a table that'll have enough food on it to feed, half a dozen villages and other places around the world, half of which will end up getting tossed out at the end of the week. So we have an endless amount of things to be thankful for, and we can't lose sight of it, or we will lose those things.
Yeah. Yeah, so honestly, I don't really have much else to say. I just kind of wanted to go through those thoughts for the night. I know that it's easy to get sucked into all of the bad that is going on in the world. We quite literally talk about it on this show once a week. And we're one of many, 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 many people who do that. Many of those people do it more than once a week. There's plenty of bad to talk about. That is a fact. That's not going away. We've said it throughout this show several times. It maybe is the worst time in history, but it also maybe isn't. And at the end of the day, we still have so much to be thankful for this Thanksgiving and every Thanksgiving. And I truly believe that there are enough of us out there listening to shows like this in these small pockets that if and when the time comes, we can find a way to pause in the chaos the same way the Pilgrims and Indians did hundreds of years ago, and come together and be thankful together, and hopefully do the right thing if that type of thing ever happens. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah, so I want to call to mind for everybody that our next episode next week will be our 100th episode. So we're looking forward to celebrating that with you. We have requested questions from any of our listeners. If you haven't yet thought about it and would like to get one in, we can still entertain answering a question. You email them in or reach out to Bree or put it in on our website. We would still be happy to answer questions from anybody out there on any subjects. We'll do our best to address them. Up until that time, we wish the very best of a Thanksgiving to you and your family. And I only want to say that in a world filled with loneliness, uncertainty, and evil, we give thanks. We give thanks for family and friends, for the daily bread which we have to eat, for our jobs, our homes, our communities, and our country. For despite all that is going on, we the believers give thanks, for we know our victory is in the Lord. We will keep working and spreading the good news of the gospel and our opportunity to right the ship for future generations. So all the best to all of you. We look forward to joining you next week for our 100th episode. And for my Bible verse tonight, let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. For he satisfies the thirsty and he fills the hungry with good things. That is Psalm 107, verses 8 and 9.
Perfect. Well, there you have it, folks. We sincerely wish all of our listeners and everyone else the best Thanksgiving. I know we're coming into the busy time of year with all the holidays butting up against each other. So we will continue to be here every Thursday at 6 p.m. 100th episode coming up next week. Please enjoy your holiday. Be safe. Have fun. Remember to be grateful every day. There is much to be grateful for. And until next week,
stay vigilant. Good night, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate the support and truly love getting to share this message with anyone who wants or needs it. The best way for you to support the show is to subscribe, add a rating, and share with everyone you know. You can find us on Instagram, X, and at thefourthbox.com. We'll see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Stay vigilant.